and we will get started. All right, guys. Well, welcome to our actually first ever leadership panel. So this is really designed for all of you new students, for all of you new guys, because we are all students as well, and we may help run the club, but we know what it's like to overcome lots of challenges. And so this is an opportunity for everyone to really pick our brains. Just to get started with introductions, I am Richelle. I'm the online leader for Drawaholic, so I help run a lot of most of what you see right now because we're all virtual. But I am getting my degree in illustration. I have focuses on graphic novel and world building, fantasy illustration, and concept art. So I'm kind of doing the whole jack of all trades. But I'm also on my senior year, so I am about to graduate. Next up is Letitia.
You can call me Tish. I am in game development. Let me see. Yeah, concept art, doing some concept art for games. I am also in my last year. Richelle, we are graduating the same time, I think.
I know.
Yeah. And I am the events leader, which used to be on site, but now I'm online. So we're going to figure that out.
Right.
All right, who wants to go next? Jordan?
Yeah, I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan, and I recently graduated this past semester with an MFA in game development concept art. And I still serve as a leader, and I primarily led the on-site workshops when things were still on-site. Bernice, how about you?
Hello, I'm Bernice. I also graduated recently with an MFA in game dev concept art. I am actually currently working at Block Party for UI UX design. And I actually am on the clock right now, so whoops.
Game.
Hey, I want to help you guys out. But yeah, I also, when I was on site, I would help out with the workshops as well.
Awesome. So yes, we are all very excited to be here for you today. But honestly, I want to have Letitia start because one of the hardest parts is not only getting started on major projects and even just homework assignments, but it's also finding the motivation to keep going. You know, you're so exhausted, you're so tired. How do you keep going through it all? So go ahead, Letitia.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Rochelle. Sorry. This is probably one of the hardest things out there. Motivation is not constant. There will be days where you don't want to get out of bed. There will be days where you don't want to pick up the pencil. And sometimes you legitimately do need a break. I mean, sometimes like I've just like worked way too hard, and it's really okay to take a break. Never feel guilty about cutting yourself a little slack. As for actually having the motivation to get work done, sometimes it's not there, and you kind of have to push through it. It sounds really lame. like here's your secret to motivation. There is none. But if you can really power through, then your brain will start to learn that even though you're not motivated, you can still kick it into gear for whatever creative activity you need to do, or whether that's homework or just like if you're doing personal stuff and you just don't feel like doing it. I know what I do is I just put on some of like my favorite music and I just like sit down and I just start. Sometimes I'll start like a timer, like, okay, I'll just do this for 20 minutes. And then by the end of the 20 minutes, I end up turning the timer off. But the main thing is to just keep going. Even when it seems hard, there is this, we're here for you. So reach out, like if you're ever unsure or hold on, I just saw, wait, there's a chat. Okay. Needing to take a break versus keep going. Oh, it is really hard to find the fine line between like, you know, needing to take a break versus, you know, needing to keep going. Throughout the years, I've just kind of learned my own threshold and my own workflow. I tend to, sometimes I will schedule little breaks throughout the day. But sometimes if it's like a massive, like, you can kind of feel yourself like you have no time for anything personal, like reading a book or watching a movie. When you start to have like no time to do other things and you keep declining, you know, hanging out with people because you have no time. And that's kind of like a red flag where you need to maybe sit back and go, okay, maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I need to take a break. Maybe I need to slow down. But as I was saying before, I mean, we're all here. We're all here for you. A community is super important. If you're not feeling, you know, up to doing anything, or even if you're feeling great, I mean, always check in. And especially during this whole, like, now we're all online thing, was super hard to keep like in touch with people because it feels so impersonal now. So it's even more important to continue to make relationships in like the Discord or the Facebook, or even get people's phone numbers, you know, and just text them. But I think the main thing with motivation and everything and encouragement, first of all, if you need any encouragement, come to me, because I will gladly give you a little pep talk. But I think the hardest part for me, is you need to believe in yourself. Because you can do it, you will do it, and all of us are behind you, like helping you do it. So I think I read somewhere, like, you know, if you believed in Santa for like years, like you can believe in yourself for 5 minutes. But and I honestly find that the most difficult thing for me to do too, because it's so easy to let the thoughts creep in about, I'm not good at this, or just, I don't know if I can get this done on time, or just all of the negativity. And if you just kind of push back on that and say, remind yourself like why you're here, why you're doing this, what your goals are, it can kind of keep you back into like perspective. And just remember that you got this.
Yeah, no, that's really the biggest thing is you need to have faith in yourself. You know, for me personally, I tricked myself into the reward system. So, you know, I heard it a while back. It was just like in one of those weird little psychology books, but it said that motivation is a product of accomplishment, that it's not a gift, it doesn't come to you randomly. It's the product of accomplishment. When you finish something, you feel great about it, and you're proud, and that's motivation. And so I kind of tricked myself where it's like, oh, if I want to feel good about something, I need to get it done first. And that just kind of steamrolled. So now I kind of reward myself when I do try to keep to a pretty strict schedule. At the very least, you know, like I will, if I get, you know, 3 homework assignments for one class done, or 2 hours of in-depth practice or whatever, and I'll go through my to-do list for the day. If I successfully get that done, then at the end of the night I can get an hour or two of just whatever, whether it's reading a non-related book or playing a game or watching a movie with my kid or something like that. That's my reward system. If I want to have time like that, I need to work for it. And that's the other thing that I see a lot of students falling into, is that, oh, there's so much work to do in class. There's so much that needs to be done, and it's so stressful. And it really really doesn't have to be. That we're here because we want to learn an industry trade. We're here because this is what we want to do. And if it's something we want to do, it's something we enjoy. Sure, it may not be exactly relevant to what we specifically want to do. It's like, oh, if you want to do stylized and you're doing life studies and figure drawing, the figure drawing attributes to your style and attributes to your knowledge. So it is still building you up, even if it doesn't feel like it right away. So still find enjoyment in it. And then it no longer feels like work. Yeah, so that's another little trick, a little tweak that I did is I find enjoyment in everything I do, because then when I enjoy it and I have fun, I don't feel exhausted at the end of the day. I don't feel stressed and overwhelmed until I look at my schedule for the next day. But you find a way to work with yourself and work with your schedule. You find a way to work with your workload and you figure it out, and don't let yourself fall behind.
Richelle, there's a question in the chat.
Oh, is that?
Yeah. How do you maintain not rushing your work if you know getting it done gives you that sense of accomplishment?
I would definitely have to. So that falls more under self-discipline. That it is very easy to rush through your homework assignments and get them done as quick as possible. But that's not the goal of your homework assignments. It's the prime objective for your homework assignments and for your 2500 is for you to learn and grow. So take pride in your growth and take pride in your development. And even if it takes you a little bit longer than you had originally anticipated, that's okay. And for not rushing your work, when you feel that pride in what you're doing, it may not even be related to what you want to do, but you're still doing it. You're still getting work done. And that's also something this is going to sound silly. We know we all know that one artist who doesn't do anything unless they're inspired. They're like, oh, I gotta have the right environment. Oh, I gotta make sure that I have everything in place and I gotta be in the right mood to do it. And if it's even raining out, I won't be able to draw. And we're here for our trade skills. We're here for an industry job. We're showing up to work. It's as simple as that. But that's a very good question. Jordan, do you have anything to add to any of those?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think when it came to rushing my work, that trying to figure that balance out, realistically, we all have deadlines. We all have, that 1 week or 2 week deadline to get the assignment done. And I think what happens is when you start to, when people start getting afraid, they'll start putting things off. They'll procrastinate and they won't even think about their project. And then they're left to the last minute. And then that's when they start rushing. I think the trick is you have to really start thinking about these things a little bit earlier and apply a little bit every day. And that's sort of the philosophy of the 2500 challenge, which is, the way you get into, you become an official member of Drawaholic Anonymous. A lot of people will put off most of those drawings to the last 1 or 2 months, and then they'll start rushing, and then they won't see as much of an improvement, and they'll wonder why. It's because you put that off to the very, very end. Whereas there are some others who do, the recommended 7 to 8 drawings a day, and a year later, they've grown so much. And I think learning how to recognize that, and we all are different. We all have our little things that we try to avoid. I know I have mine. I'm sure others have theirs. But that's something that you really have to pay attention to and make sure that you learn to overcome. And as far as the previous topic about motivation, I don't think we should. I feel like a lot of people rely too much on having that motivation, and it gives people the excuse of just waiting for that one moment, that spark that Richelle was just talking about. And instead, if you just learn to like really remember that dream, like the reason you go to art school, the reason you come to the academy, the reason you join Drawaholics is because you have a dream, a passion to create this great video game or this epic movie, or you want to be the next, you want to create the next Marvel or whatever. Keeping those dreams alive, I think, are really, really important. I don't know if Bernice, if you have anything you want to add to it.
Yeah, for mainly for not rushing your work, I actually found this more, it was like 2 semesters ago, I was taking C3 and like the Brian's character class, I forgot what it was called, as well as like an environment painting class. And I had to like figure, and I used to commute to school from like further down California, so it took me like an hour or two to get to school. So I started like actually schedule. I find that helps if you schedule out what you're going to be drawing that day. So for example, like say if you have C3, you want to do all the thumbnails. So schedule out a chunk to just draw those thumbnails and then work on something else. That way you also won't burn yourself out while you're doing that kind of work. Because if you just focus on one class's work the entire day, you're going to like lose your focus. You're going to lose your like motivation for it as well. But if you keep it fresh for you to like between your classes, you can give yourself a break while also still being productive.
Yeah. Yeah, and that actually brings up another question that actually Madeline brought up in the lounge about, how do you prioritize work? And that's a lot of like what I do for my classes is I will schedule one large, if it's like if one class I'm doing finishes, it's like, okay, I'll work on that for a bit, and then later on I will work on one where it's just sketches or thumbnails. I try to get like all of the module work and all of the discussions started early, and then that way I only have to check on them couple of times for the rest of the week. But I do try to limit myself to at least one major assignment a day. And if I get that big one done early, then I'll get started on another one. But I honestly, me personally, I try to schedule all of my homework earlier in the week, just so that way if I need extra time, or if I need help with it, if I need to ask someone for feedback or get a hold of the instructor because I'm struggling with understanding the concepts, I have time for that. Leaving the weekend open gives you that buffer. And or if it's something that I just want to invest extra time in, and it's like, hey, this is a portfolio piece, I want to put in extra hours in this one, then I have all weekend to do that, and I will get everything else done ahead of it, and I will work on that for the remainder of the week. But Letitia, you got anything to add to prioritizing work?
Prioritizing. I mean, so many people do it in different ways. There's kind of no real, like, this is how you do it. I'm kind of the same way with you, Richelle, where I kind of like, and Bernice, where I kind of like pick one big thing to work on, and then I switch out. Although when I get like in the zone, sometimes I'll just work on like the same homework assignment for like all day. But I mean, basically, just know when your due dates are, don't procrastinate, and if you need help, like from a teacher, email them right away, because it's so much better to email them right away than like emailing them the night before, because then it's like, what's the point?
Which actually, to add to that, not just your instructor, we're here for you guys as well. Like, don't hesitate. That's where we have the general feedback lounge. If that's meant for homework, and if you need an extra set of eyes, or if you're having issues, you can either post there or message any of us and be like, hey, I need help, because we understand. But don't wait until last minute to do it. I mean, honestly, I've been mentoring for the school for a few years now, and it's hard to watch students wait until absolutely last minute to not only get to work, but to ask for help, because then they're also, they're also waiting on me to respond. And then then that is rushing work. Then they are rushing to get it done all last minute. They aren't getting what they need to get from the assignment. And so it's very hard to watch. But we're here for you guys on that. But Jordan, prioritizing work.
There's a particular classmate of I don't even think he was in my major, but Bernice knows who I'm talking about. There's one student who waited till the very, 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 very last minute to work on their thesis project. You need a thesis to graduate as an MFA, and it was the last semester, and we would say, "Hey, how far have you gotten?" And they would say, "I haven't done anything. I haven't done any research, any designs, any thumbnails," and it was just pitiful. Quite honestly, I don't even know if this person graduated. I honestly don't know.
I think he made it,
Did
but I don't think he got out of it with like any benefit towards himself, if that makes sense. It's like you'll be better off if you actually spend the honest time on your work and not
you
just
cheat
rush it all
yourself.
the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. I think a lot of times people kind of get hung up about how honest they really are. Like, there are people who need more time to do one particular thing over the other, and they will and because maybe they enjoy the thing that takes them the least amount of time, they'll end up spending so much time on that, and they'll forget the other thing, the other assignment, and their schedule's all backwards. So I think really learning how quickly you can work on something is really key. Finding ways to use to document your time. So maybe if you have to commute to school, let's say it's an hour. I know it's a little different now with everything being online, but let's just pretend that everything's normal for a second. If it takes you an hour or hour and a half to get to school and you don't get motion sickness on the train, can you draw on your iPad and knock out some thumbnails? Can you come up with some compositions? Can you come up with some story ideas? Research, maybe pull some images for a mood board. All these different things. You can use your time in a very solid way if you can think of how to just take those little shortcuts here and there. And every minute saved or every minute utilized is really going to help you in the long run.
And that actually kind of segues. So one of the questions that had gotten DM'd to me was, okay, one of the things that we emphasize here at the Drawaholics is building the healthy drawing habits and just healthy work habits in general. And they're wondering, how exactly does what we do for Drawaholics and what we do for the school translate into our future art careers? So essentially, how does the healthy habits we develop now benefit us later? So actually, Bernice, do you want to start out with that one?
Wait a minute, let me jump in here real quick.
Okay.
I gotta answer that one.
Well, first you got to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael.
Who are you?
Fine.
He's the mystery man.
Hello.
The stalker, the creepy stalker of the Drawaholics.
It's red over here right now. It's very strange to be here. I'm living on planet Mars currently. My name is Michael Buffington, and I am a guy who likes to draw. And I founded this little group called Drawaholics Anonymous because I like to draw a lot. And to answer your question, or to help answer it, you guys can all jump in, but I am very big on psychology. And the way that the human brain works is that the human brain likes to be very efficient. So when the human brain realizes that there is a certain behavior or activity that you are going to be doing repeatedly, the human brain goes, oh, okay, so we're going to be doing this a lot. So I'm going to create a little shortcut called a synapse between the impulse and the actual carrying out of that particular behavior or action. And so while drawing may seem incredibly difficult in the beginning, the more that you do it through these repeated actions, the more synapses that your brain creates, and the easier it is for you to go from impulse to actually carrying out the action. And so you'll for example, somebody who's been drawing for many years to somebody who's just starting, they'll watch them draw and it'll look like magic. Sorry, that's a train. So the 2500 challenge is literally designed to create these synapses in your brain. So once that happens, now drawing over and over and in an almost obsessive sort of way is not actually a difficult thing to do. It's something that comes natural. In fact, I've heard people being done with the 2500 and feeling like they didn't know what to do with themselves, and that's why we created a bunch of additional challenges so that people can keep going. But what people need to understand is that this is all about skill building. And the greater your foundational skill set, the more likelihood that you'll be able to be competitive in the professional market. Nobody gives a crap about your degree. Nobody cares about how long you stayed in school. The only thing that they care about is the quality of your portfolio. And what's going to help that is the kind of things that we do in the program and in Drawaholics Anonymous. So if you guys do those things, you are really setting yourself up for a success. There are people that don't agree with that and they want to do things their own way, and that's okay, because the world needs waiters. So not everybody can be a concept artist, and if you're going to be a concept artist, you have to be willing to put in the work. You can't get something for nothing, and concept art is definitely one of those things that you have to be willing to put into work to get. Does that make sense? So anyway, I'm gonna go now.
Thank you, Michael. We also call him Jedi Master Michael. But yeah, Bernice, do you wanna add to that?
Yeah, I was gonna say what Michael said about building skills is super important, because even after the 2500, you should start making more skill goals for yourself too. This is, for example, this is a skill that I totally didn't expect to be getting so soon. But when it came to C3, I ended up being so rushed for time in that class is that I completely skipped sketching phases most of the time and went straight to line art, and no one noticed. But that's a skill that I got because all before that I would spend so many classes sketching and sketching and sketching. At some point I was just like, wait, I know I can draw the human face and the human body with, because I have that muscle memory, and I also have those anatomy studies in my mind. So I'm just like, I can just go straight to line art and it looks fine. But that's just an example of how it starts affecting you. And that's in the last year of my grad program. Before I came here, I actually didn't draw much. So in 3 years, I went from having to sketch out every single piece to now I don't even sketch that much on occasion if I'm rushing for a deadline or something. And it works.
Yeah, and actually, I got a funny story like that too with my animal anatomy class. So I'm doing some of the higher challenges too. I like to say I'm flavoring my practice with the higher challenges. When I actually start working on a project, then it's like the higher challenges come into good use because they give you ideas on how you can better build up and prepare for that specific project. But so for my animal anatomy class, we just had to do these a page of quick studies and or just life studies, and he's like, oh, spend about 10 minutes on each one and then move on to the next one. And I posted, and he's like, Richelle, you're spending way too much time. And I'm like, but you said 10 minutes. And he's like, what? He legitimately thought I was spending an hour or two on each one, and it's like, no, I was just that was only 10 minutes, and because that's what I built up. And for me personally, having no prior art experience before coming here, the 2500 helped me install those healthy practice habits in my brain. And the thing that I noticed about habits is with each habit you build, so they say it takes about a week to first start initializing a habit. You got to do it every day. The first week is the hardest. After 3 weeks, it's starting to sink into your brain, and your brain's starting to make those connections. 3 months, every day for 3 months is the minimum it takes for that habit to officially be installed. And then once that habit is installed, you can keep that habit going, but then you can add on to it. And once that new thing is added on, and that's actually how you build your skills and build healthy drawing habits and also awesome art skills, is you practice and then you get a little bit of coaching and figure out what you need to work on and add on to that, and then practice some more and add on to it. But Letitia, your turn.
Oh, what was the core that we were talking about again?
So the core was how healthy practice habits can translate to future art careers.
Oh, okay. I'm paying attention, I swear. I mean, basically, I mean, we pretty much covered it, but I'm a big believer in like schedules, like we were talking about earlier. Sometimes I will sort of like actually physically like write it down. Okay, by here, I want to like be so far here with my ability, or like you were talking about animal anatomy and stuff. Like there's the animal challenge one, which I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm a bit behind on. Sometimes I'll give myself a time period, like, okay, I'm going to do these animals like from here to here. And then, but I mean, and the keep sticking to that is the self-discipline part, which is really hard to do, but
it gets easier.
It does. And it's kind of like that motivation one. You kind of just, you gotta do it. You gotta just sit down and do it.
Yep, gotta power through it. And then once you install it, then keep going, add something else. Jordan, you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, I want to change it just slightly because I think you guys have all done a great job talking about like the benefits of a healthy work, like work habits. But I think we should also kind of mention some things that are probably not the healthiest habits to develop. And yes. I know that one of them is just having poor mechanics. And I know Michael's talked about this with many students, but there's one particular person I can think of who was working so hard and just trying to improve because, you know, he started from basically zero and had to get up to 100 in just a few short years at school and with Drawaholics, and would put so much strain on his wrist that he actually got wrist injuries. There's several people I could think of who had that problem. And so you have to make sure you take care of yourself, and I kept telling my friend, I said, look, man, you aren't even out of school yet. You still have a whole career to have. You can't be having these wrist issues and hand issues right now. It's way too early. So definitely want to make sure you keep tabs on that, making sure you have solid mechanics, that you aren't gripping the pencil or paintbrush or whatever too hard, and get that set. The other thing is, mentally speaking, there's always room for improvement, but you also want to be careful not to talk down to yourself while you work, because when you're constantly comparing yourself to other artists, maybe a classmate or even a pro, whatever the case may be, sometimes it's someone who's like 5 or 6 years younger than you. That one bruises a lot of ego as well. You have to remember that you're on your own specific journey. You as an individual, you have a completely different life than everyone else that you're going to be competing with, and you have to give yourself permission to fail often, and to grow, because we all have that path. So keep motivating yourself, keep pushing yourself, and don't allow yourself to fall into a pit of despair because one drawing or one painting didn't turn out the way that you wanted to.
How's that one? We quote it all the time. It takes 10,000 bad drawings to get to the good drawing.
I think Chuck Jones, we all have 10,000 bad drawings in us, and the faster we can get those out, the better. I think that's my way of paraphrasing.
Yep. And with the 2,500, you're already a quarter there.
There you go.
All right, so this is kind of a little bit about what we've been talking about, but let's address it directly. The dreaded art block. how do we overcome and prevent art block in the future?
I think I'm going to need a definition of art block. No offense.
Whoa, let me jump in here real quick.
Okay.
Oh.
I don't believe in the concept of art block.
That's why I asked about it.
Yeah, I don't.
I believe artist block is a very strange sort of cop-out that people use. It's not like writing a story or writing a song or trying to, if I were a book writer and I needed to come up with a new book, and I wanted to come up with a story, I can see having a block, but oftentimes all you need to do is go and find some inspiration. But art is different. If people are having quote unquote artist block, as they like to put it, it's really as simple as, well, I can't think of anything to draw right now, so I'm just going to sit down and draw feet. I'm just going to sit down and draw hands. I'm just going to sit down and draw a head. That's the way you get beyond that. You just start drawing. You don't have to, it's bizarre to me how people use the term artist block, and I have never allowed people to wallow in that and say, oh, well, I have artist block right now, and so I really can't draw, and that's why I'm struggling so much. It's like, go draw 1,000 heads. You'll be fine. By the time you're done, you'll work it out, So I don't believe in the concept of artist block, because I think really what we have to be doing is that we have to be drawing, repetitiously and grinding and practicing and studying, a lot. So if you can't think of anything original and unique and cool to draw, then just draw feet or hands or arms, or go and draw landscapes. Like, it doesn't, the ability to keep your pencil moving is not dependent upon you having some new and fresh sort of inspiration. So never allow the concept of artist block to be used as a justification for you not continuing to work. If there is something stopping you from working, it's not artist block, it's something else psychologically that needs to be dealt with. And that could go back far deeper than your time in art school. So yeah, the concept of artist block, I don't really prescribe to myself. So I hope that helps. I'm gonna go now.
Actually, that he took the words right out of my mouth. I also do not believe in the concept of artist block. Because, once again, I feel like, I got to show up for work, and it's the same thing with practice. And if ever there is a time where I'm like, oh, I don't really know what to do, you know what? I'll get up on Pinterest and I'll do life studies, or I'll do hands and heads or something, or even go outside and draw my neighbor's house. Like, I've done that before. Just when it's like, oh, I don't really know what to draw right now. Look around, look on your phone. Like, there is never not an answer to that question. And if you want to do something fantasy, if you want to do something from your imagination, start with research. Be like, oh, okay, do you want to do a mermaid, or do you want to do a unicorn or a dragon? And then start with research. Research fish and research unicorns, or horses. Don't research unicorns. Horses, and then dragons. You can do lizards and lions, or however you'd like to do your dragons. And start with life study research, and then go. And once you put your pencil down and start moving it, I guarantee you the ideas will come. But
the worst thing you can do is just not draw.
Amen.
Oh, definitely.
Awesome. Is art block the same as creative burnout? That was just asked in the chat.
I wouldn't say that, because sometimes you're burned out, but you still want to draw, but you're also just exhausted,
Yeah, there is a point where you can be mentally exhausted. So one of the things that I notice a lot of people undermine, and it's understandable, is when we're drawing and when we're creating, we are making a lot of decisions, micro decisions in each of our pieces. And there is a thing called decision fatigue. We only have one tank of gas a day, essentially. And when we do make those micro creative decisions one after the other, it does wear out our brain. However, that can be built on and that can be developed. So just like with drawing or doing your 2500, you can actually build up and grow your gas tank to make more decisions in a day. But for me, whenever I do hit that point and I'm just like, oh, my brain is like just dead, I will still be working. If I have to switch projects, sometimes switching up what I'm working on is helpful, because then I'm still being productive, but and it kind of gives you like a refreshment. Or I'll just go to a personal art project for like 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes or so. But either way, I still try to remain active even when I'm burnt out, because in the past, I haven't done that. And I would get burnt out and I would just lounge about the rest of the day like I feel dead inside. And I felt worse in the morning. In the morning, I really felt dead inside because it's like, wow, I had 5 hours I could have done something with, and I just went and binged on Netflix. And I would legitimately get mad at myself for it. And eventually, I just started working through it. And then the next day when I woke up, I was like, oh, yesterday was a little bit tough, but I made it through it. I got stuff done. Let's hit it again today. But Jordan, you got something you want to add to that?
Yeah, so when it comes to creative burnout, I think there's a difference between just being lazy and being actually tired. And so when you're exhausted, when you've had a full day of class or work or whatever, and you come home and it's 11 o'clock at night, you have a right to be a little tired, but there's still that space that a lot of us find where we have to put out something creative. And I think that that's always something that you really want to try and hone in on and figure out how do you develop that creativity. So anytime if you're stuck, maybe if you need to watch a movie, if you need to read a book or whatever the case may be, I think that those, you have to find those steps to push forward. Whereas not burnout. Where when it comes to art block, I usually see that as just someone wanting to be lazy or just trying to find, like Michael said, trying to find some sort of excuse to not put the work in, because there's always something to draw. So.
Yep. And Madeline just said she feels like deciding what you're going to draw the day before then can really save you from decision fatigue. That is one way to look at it. But when you think about it, you already have a game plan. You have your classes, you have your homework, and you have the 2500, at least an hour a day. But sometimes just waiting till spur of the moment where it's like, oh, I need to sit down and draw. Well, you may have, like you may have just finished reading the course content and you saw this really adorable penguin in there and you're like, you know what, I want to draw penguins. So also leave yourself open, leave yourself that flexibility in what you want to do. I mean, either way, there's going to be there. I mean, you started school, there's going to be no shortage of things that you can do to fill your time and to fill your practice time and stuff like that. There's not going to be a shortage. But yeah, give yourself some flexibility in that time. If you want to set an exact step-by-step game plan, that is something I've seen people do. I do tend to do that when I go to set for larger, more complex projects. I'll do something a little bit more detailed. But for the most part, I have my end goals, I have my deadlines, and I will, spur the moment. And I have the time that I put in as well that I schedule. But for specifically, no, and when I mentioned micro decisions in drawing, kind of what I'm talking about is like, what kind of shoes is this person wearing? What kind of belt? Like, those are all micro decisions that we make. And that is definitely a muscle in your brain that you can exercise and be able to make more micro decisions in the day. But Bernice, did you have anything you wanted to add to this?
Um, I think I'm good. Maybe just things like, make sure to just stretch, do something different if if you're really feeling the burnout. Or even like if you can budget the time, maybe like just spend half a day doing something fun for yourself, refresh yourself.
Yep, I like it. Okay, so someone else just sent in another question. How, or not how, what are some of the biggest mistakes we've made in our time at AEU or AEU that we regret? Like what is one of the mistakes that we look back on and but we're happy we made it?
Oh.
Do you want to start, Letitia?
No, I was just like, mistakes. Like, all came up.
Which ones?
I know.
More specific.
I'm gonna have to think about that.
Okay, I can start this off. Because I actually talk about this a lot. Yes, we emphasize drawing every day for our 2500, and I would have actually finished 4 months sooner if I didn't stop practicing daily during a semester. And I kicked myself so hard when even when I finished my 2500, like I look back and it's like that is just like a black area in my head. And it's like I missed out on so much practice. And why? Because I was too busy to do daily practice. Like, it's like there's nothing I could come up with would justify making that. To me it was making a poor decision. But I'm not like berating myself. Like I'm not like, oh, you're worthless and you don't know how to do no, I'm looking back on it. It's like, oh, this is why we got to practice daily, because it was so hard to get back in the groove. And you'll hear me say this a lot. It is easier to stay on the horse than it is to get back up on the horse. If you wait too long between practice sessions, I even saw my skills degrade back to what they were, because we're building up muscle memory. We're building up, those brain habits and patterns of thinking that you will lose that. It's just like a bodybuilder who doesn't work out for 3 months. They come back and they're looking like a stick because their muscles actually degraded. And so that's what we're trying to help. We're trying to give people a fertile foundation to build that habit themselves. Give them that room to grow, because it is super important. And honestly, I am embarrassed to say that, but at the same time, I learned from it. It was a huge and powerful lesson to me. As much as I'm still kicking myself for it to this day, like 2-3 years later. But okay, Letitia, did you think of anything?
Well, no.
Jordan?
I'm trying to think of mistakes that came out well, and I don't know if I can think of any of them.
Well, even if they didn't come out well, they weren't specific. Like I just wanted to put that one out there. But Jordan, have you made any mistakes?
I've made way too many mistakes. I think I could probably boil them down to two. The first one being letting my frustration get the best of me, and then two, sticking with the comfort zone. I think both of those have really, I face the effects of both of those to this day. Starting with the frustrations, there were times projects or assignments that really got to me, and I would have to, I had to learn how to break out of that. And there were several teachers and classmates who had to help me out with that. And Michael's already looking at me in the camera. I'm not lying when I say this. So yeah, being frustrated, learning how to get past that is definitely really big. Especially when you care a lot about what you're doing. When you have a passion for something, sometimes the emotions get amplified and your frustration is also amplified. So don't let that control you. The second thing is comfort zones. And that's a tricky one, because I think that every student I've met always has a particular area of interest that they favor. So maybe someone likes drawing vehicles, maybe someone likes drawing characters or painting, whatever it is. And the ones that I've seen really excel, especially during their time at the academy, are the ones who dip their toe in everything, even if they don't like it. And for me, sticking, I really like drawing characters and human figure and stuff. And I excelled in that area, but when it came to a lot of other things, my skills were not as high up there. And that's something I'm still, trying to work out. I recognize it. But that's something that if I could talk to myself about 2 years ago, I would definitely like really hammer that in. So yeah, those are my 2 mistakes. So don't do what I did there.
Learn from our
I can
mistakes.
add one for Jordan.
Oh.
I already gave myself 2. Why are you going to do that to me, man?
Oh,
I'm going to add another one for you, Jordan, because you do this, and Bernice does this, and Tish does this. You don't put enough peanut butter and jelly on the bread.
What?
Have you already forgotten our talk about peanut butter and jelly, Jordan?
Jordan, I got the peanut butter and jelly lecture.
We all did.
To be fair, Michael, you give me plenty of lectures. I can't remember every single one. Okay.
Tish, can you refresh Jordan's memory about the peanut butter and jelly lecture?
It's like, if I remember correctly, it's like when you do something, but you could go further. Like there's just like a thin layer of peanut butter, and it's like slap it on, but like you're too afraid to like slap it on. And
Now I remember. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
no sad PB&Js, guys.
Exactly. We don't want sweet bread. We want a sopping peanut butter jelly sandwich with pieces. You take a bite and start spilling out the sides. Those are the best sandwiches. So I say that to my students who are inhibited by fear of making a mistake, so they always play it safe. And as Will Smith once said, taking the safe road is the surest way to mediocrity. So if you want to be mediocre as an artist, don't take any chances, play it safe. Your art will look stiff and uninspired, and people will just be like, it's all right. So if you just want to be regular, if you just want to be average, play it safe. That's the best way to do that. But if you want to be awesome, take some risk. Because the worst thing that could happen is that you make a bad drawing and then you go make another one. That's it. So that's what I mean when I say you need to put more peanut butter and jelly on the sandwich.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. You never gave me that talk, and you should have. But that's like me with sauce on my rice. I love Asian food. I absolutely love it. I especially love it when it comes with extra sauce. Like my rice is swimming. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
And it shows in your artwork, Richelle. You don't have to put any more peanut butter and jelly. That's not your issue.
No chill. Oh, I love it. Oh my goodness. Honestly, I think we covered everything. There were some questions about mediums and, why we say traditional for the 2500 versus digital. Do you guys want to elaborate on traditional benefits over digital when it comes to improving drafting?
I mean, there's nothing like the feeling of pencil on paper.
That's true.
That ASMR of it scraping.
But also, it's very good pressure practice. Like, I feel like simulated pressure on a screen just doesn't quite match up to, the hand control you get from drawing on real, paper with a pencil. And you can also experiment more because you have actual mediums that require specific, ways of control. So, pen, ink, paint, and pencil. So, doing those helps you in the long run.
I honestly, I would have to agree, because when you think about it, digital is just it's just
there's an undo button.
Yeah, there's way too many
undo buttons for quitters, no undos.
Yeah.
And if you haven't noticed, almost all of the digital brush packs that you see out there are replicating, hey, this one looks more like a pencil than that one looks like a pencil, or hey, this one looks like oil paint, or that one does watercolor effects. They're all emulating traditional media. And me personally, the moment I heard, if you build up your skills traditionally, it will be easy, you'll latch on to digital easier, but at your core, your skills will be more well-founded. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did all my traditional media classes and, the 2,500 a course, and I still do my regular practice on paper. I do some digital practice, but for the most part, all my practice is done on sketchbook and paper, because there is no undo button. There is no lasso and resize. There is no, oh, you know what? I'm just going to warp this just a little bit. No, you see a mistake and you're like, whoa, I did his forehead way too big. And then you keep it in mind for the next one. And you also, like what Bernice was saying, you also learn how to better control your whatever pen or pencil you're holding. That is super important, because I do see students struggle with being able to even just regulate their pressure with just a pencil and paper, and that is a very crucial thing that you don't think you need, but it's actually there. Letitia, you got anything you want to add to that?
Well, I definitely agree with you about the whole, like, the more you work traditionally, the more it will transfer digitally. I never drew digitally before coming to the academy, really. Like, I did everything on paper. And it was like such a foreign concept to me. Now I love the undo button, but that's beside the point. It helps you to create a better foundation and know the media better. But also, I mean, digital is also not as accessible all the time. Like I'm constantly, like, I actually, during class, like, I have a notebook that I actually write in, like old school, take notes, and I will draw in there. And it, sometimes with pen, sometimes with pencil, and so it ends up being like kind of a little practice pad, but like I remember too that I went somewhere. I was like, I think I was abroad, and I was abroad, and I was inside this church, and they didn't allow pictures, so I just grabbed any scrap of paper I had on me and I just drew what was inside the church, because we weren't allowed to take photos. So sometimes, I mean, it's still really good to know, the traditional way, and to practice it, and to ingrain that into your brain, because then when you take that to digital, it will transfer so much easier.
Jordan, did you want to add to the traditional versus digital?
Yeah, I mean, you guys mostly covered everything, but the one thing I would say is I feel like when it's traditional, it's a matter of the skill that you have. And with digital, oftentimes it's more about learning how to just use the tool, learning how Photoshop works. Because, there are some people who can paint with oils or acrylics or whatever, and they're phenomenal. But you put them in front of a Cintiq, and they're like, what is this? But if they were to get 2 or 3 weeks to just learn the tools, they'll be fine. Like I think Nathan Fowkes, who was a background painter on a lot of DreamWorks films like Prince of Egypt and Road to El Dorado, he primarily did acrylics on all those movies, and then when they switched over to doing digital, he said it took him a couple weeks to get used to it, and then after that he was set, and now he can do both incredibly well. And so I think having a traditional foundation is always the best way to go. And to be honest, I don't know too many people who are really good digitally who can't draw well traditionally, unless they're manicuring all their drawings and making it like using warp tool and transform and doing all this stuff that takes them hours and hours and hours to fix.
And Actually, that reminds me. So I was interviewing one of my local buddies, Christopher Clark. He's actually looking at coming to the school, which is freaking awesome. Like George Lucas has bought paintings from him, and he's looking at coming to our school. But you know, he was telling me that what he couldn't say the name, but it's one of his really good friends and works high up at a fashion magazine and looks to he still does all of his interviews for all of his fashion designers because one of the things he does is like, okay, he looks at their work and if it's mostly digital or all digital, he will put a piece of paper and a pencil in front of them and say, do it again, show me that you did that, because he wants to make sure that their skills are traditionally founded and not, you know, just them massaging and warping and molding on the computer. That when he says I need 10 dress designs by the end of the day, he knows you can get it done regardless of what you have in your hand. So that was a really cool thing to hear about. But Madeline actually is what, so Madeline says if you copy, so she's talking about doing the 2500. We do quote Loomis a lot. Loomis has provided many of foundations for drawing and draftsmen. The way we look at Loomis and, you know, even all the oldies like Da Vinci and Rembrandt and all of them, all those, we are learning from the masters. Yes, we are also learning from the mistakes they've made. However, for your 2500, do not reference them directly. When, oh, I should probably finish the question. So can Loomis be a part of the 1000 heads, or should we study Loomis separate from the drawings for the 2500? And, you know, she's like, I think separate, and you are correct. If you want to do master studies, we are actually talking about adding on some higher challenges that are master studies and style studies and stuff like that. I personally highly recommend doing master studies from time to time. But also, you know, we constantly post their proportioning and their proportion charts. When you do a head, you know, use their proportions, and even when you're done with it, go back and check and make sure you actually stuck to those proportions, because they're the best foundation to really keep you solidified and to help you build up those skills naturally, and being able to reference back to them and be like, oh, I did his eyes and nose too far apart is crucial, but they do not count towards your 2500. And that
Actually, if I could just intervene here for a
yeah,
little bit.
go ahead, because
I actually bought tracing paper, and I went into Loomis's book, and like I actually traced the figure to like not just to copy. Like your brain sometimes goes on copy mode and it shuts off, but like to actually like think about what is my hand doing? How far is my hand going down for this arm? Or, you know, what the size of this hand or stuff like that. Hold on, someone's trying to call me, I guess. Just to kind of, and I did that a couple of times for like the male figure, female figure, the head. And then I would transition to, like you were saying, Richelle, like to referencing it, but just doing it on my own. And then, so I was trying to like, basically the point is like, it doesn't, you know, it's not like cheating or tracing it. It was like, you know, I'm trying to train my brain the right proportions and lengths of things.
Well, you know, that's actually really, really smart. And one of the things that I tell students or parents, and parents come to me and say, you know, my daughter Zoe really likes to draw. She's 11 years old. How do I help her, you know, get started so that she can end up going to art school and be a really good artist and maybe even do it as a career one day? And one of the things that I tell them is go to the art store, buy a pad of tracing paper, get their favorite coloring book or comic book or whatever, and have them trace all of the characters in that book, and have them do this over and over and over, you know, for a few months, and then have them put the tracing paper away and try and look at those same drawings and draw them by hand. And what happens in that process of using tracing paper is it helps unravel the mystery of how the artist put together their lines to create the shapes that you're seeing. Because it looks like, you know, it looks impossible when you see the finished product. Like, how do they get there? And then when you do it on tracing paper and you pull the tracing paper away, you can actually see the lines, and it's like, oh, that's how they did it. So what you did was very, very smart. And in fact, I used to do this assignment, which is in game 322, which is stylized character design for games, where people used to have to emulate artists. And there were just some people that, for whatever reason, they could not wrap their brain around the concept of emulating, and they just weren't making the same types of shapes and lines, and they didn't understand why. And so, and this is extreme situation, but I would say, okay, all right, for this assignment, I want you to trace. I just want you to take a bunch of drawings from this artist and just trace. And we're going to do that for 2 weeks. And something would happen, and something would click in their brains, and they would start to get it. And it didn't mean that they would be amazing, you know, right away, but they would at least start to get it. So that was very smart, and that's something that I strongly recommend for people.
All right. Yeah, and that actually wraps up all the questions I have, unless you guys can think of anything else you'd like for us to answer or talk about or share fun stories about. But yeah, this was, I hope this absolutely helped you guys. This was definitely what we wanted to come and do, and hopefully get you guys off to a strong start this semester, because the fall semester is definitely one of the biggest, because there's so many new students, and it's exciting. Like to me, I'm just like ecstatic for everyone, and because it's also the start of the school year and everything like that. So I definitely hope this helped get everyone off to a strong start. And we are going to be doing this time slot, whether it's study groups. Hopefully the figure drawing workshops, will be able to get those up soon. This will be the same time slot for us every week. So we will see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks for joining.